Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Kamma DAF Mem. We are holding at the two dots, Tanu Rabbanon, which is 11 lines off the top of the Amud. Tanu Rabbanon, we have learned in a Bryce. Aput Rupsin. So we have a caretaker administering the estate of the orphans. Amongst the assets, we have some animals. We have a bull, a shor who harmed, he damaged. Mishalman min aliyah. So payment must be issued min aliyah from the breast, properties. Basically, Rashi says the point is they are liable for damages, but not kaifer. Ve'ein mishalman kaifer. If the animal kills, which typically triggers a kaifer compensation payment to the victim's family, there's no kaifer because these are Yisayim, youngsters. They're not liable, they're not responsible. So in terms of kaifer, there's no payment. Nezek, yes, and the Gemara yesterday explained, based on the Mefarshim, we want to protect the local community. When it comes to damages, we want to create an incentive to look after their animals, but kaifer, that's a personal kapara, it's an atonement, which is non-applicable. Now, mantana kufr kapara, who's the shita that holds that the kaifer payment is considered a kapara? It's not just, a financial, obligation. It's not just a payout. It's personal, it's a redemption, it's an atonement, it's a kapara, it's like a carbon. And therefore, v'yasmi lav b'nei kapara ninu, these Yisayim are not liable to kapara. Who's this shita who deems kaifer as a kapara payment? Amar Rav Chizda, that must be Rabbi Shmuel b'noi shel breicha breikahi the stanya, as we find in a brayse of anasim pidyon nafshe. You pay your pidyon, Dmei nizik. Your animal kills somebody, you have to pay the dmei, the value of the victim. That's kaifer. Rabbi Shmuel b'noi shel breicha breika omer, no, dmei mazik. One pays his own value. The attacker pays his personal value. So what's the machlekes about? How to define this payment? My lav bo kamifli. Apparently, this is the machlekes. The Rabbanon, they hold that it's the main nizak, the victim's value. Savri kufr mamayna. They hold that it's just a payout. And therefore, it's about value. It's about the nizak's value. Kufr mamayna. Rabbi Shmuel b'noi Shel Rabbi Yehuda ben Kessler, he holds kufra. This payout is a kapara, and therefore it corresponds to the value of the mazik. It's personal redemption. Amar Papa, no, loy dekuli almo kufra kaparu. Perhaps all agree it's a kapara. V'acha b'kamifli. It's just about how to determine that amount. That's all. Ultimately, it's coming to atone, to be mechaper. But how much is it? Rabbanon savri b'din nizak shaminan. It's based on the victim's value. Rabbi Shmuel b'noi shor brechem breka sofer b'demazik shaminan, based on the owner of the attacking animal's value. My tamid the Rabbanon. Why do Rabbanon say it's totally in the nizak? Based on a pasuk, Nemra Shisa Lamata. We have the lashon Shisa down on the bottom at the end of the parasha. Further down when the pasuk speaks about paying the kaifer, and kaifer yushas means it will be applied, it will be assessed onto the attacker. So we have that lashon there. Remember Shisa Lamala back in the previous psukim. We also have a lashon, similar lashon when it comes to compensating for lost unborn children. It says kasher yashis ala bala isha. So we have Shisa there. Just like over there, Mala Halan, just like there you're paying as per the value of the unborn children, but the nizak, afkam but the nizak here as well, when the animal attacks, it's about the nizak's value. That's the Rabbanon. And therefore it's set as per the nizak's value. Rabbi Shmuel b'noi shel brechem breka savar v'nosam pidyon nafsho. Except the pasuk describes kaifer as being a pidyon nefesh of the attacker. And therefore, it's evaluated based, it's assessed as per the attacker's value. V'Rabbanon, they say, okay, yes, correct, pidyon nafshik siv. Of course, it's meant as pidyon for the attacker, but how much is it? Meal. In order to atone for oneself, he has to plug the hole that he made. Ki shaymin, how do we assess it? But the nizak shaymin, based on the nizak's value. So ultimately, all can agree that essentially it's a kapara, and therefore the Yisayim apat. Mishabeach le Rav Nachman. It so happens that Rava was once describing to Rav Nachman, who was praising this man, but the Rav Acha bar Yaakov, the Adam Gadol. He was telling Rav Nachman how great Rav Acha bar Yaakov is. Amar Loi, so Rav Nachman turns to Rava, okay, next time he comes around, look at Sheyav Liyadcha, when he comes to you, bring him over to me. Ki Asal Kabei. So, next time he came over, Amar Loi, so Rav Nachman turns to his guest, Boy Minay Milsa, please, do you have anything to ask? Boy Minay says, sure. Shosh Shnei Shutfen. Keted Mishalman Kofer. Reuben and Shimon both own an animal who kills a person. How do they go about paying Kofer? Rashi explains. Compensating for damages, that's simple. It's all about the victim receiving his compensation, so they can both, shoulder the burden equally, they split the cost. But when it comes to Kofer, that's personal redemption. How do we go about doing that when it's two people? Mishalom Hai Kofer, V'Hai Kofer, do we say Reuben pays a full Kofer and so does Shimon? That's too much. Kofer Echad Amar Rachmana. Torah describes one Kofer payout as being in place. V'lo Shnei Kofer, not a double Kofer. That option is out. Hi Chatzi Kofer, V'Hai Chatzi Kofer. What about Reuben paying half and Shimon half? That too doesn't work. Kofer Sholem Amar Rachmana, V'lo Chatzi Kofer. Torah speaks about one full Kofer payout, a full redemption. That can't be split amongst two people. So that was the first question posed by the guest. As Rav Nachman was sitting and dwelling on this, Amar he followed through with another question on a similar topic. Tanan, we have a Mishnah in Maseches Erchen. Chayavi Erchen memashkin noisen. A person commits to erech, to pay, a person's value to the Beis Hamikdash. So until he pays it out, they take a collateral to enforce payment. Chayavi chatos v'ashamis. Ein memashkin noisen. A person owes a chatos v'asham for personal atonement. There's no need to spur him on, he's self-motivated, you don't need to take a mashkin. So when it comes to financial payouts, yes, mashkin. When it comes to kapara, no mashkin necessary. What about kaifer? It's only in between. Chayavi kaifer and mayo. What a person who has to pay kaifer? How is it treated? Like just a financial payout, which needs, encouragement? Or do we say it's a kapara and no need to push him through it? Mai, given the kapara, because ultimately it's meant to atone. We treat it like a carbon. Therefore, the person takes it seriously. There's no need to twist his arm. But ultimately, he's giving it to his friend, so he looks at it as something personal. He treats it just like a regular payout. It's not going to Shamayim, to the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore he doesn't take it so seriously, and a mashkin is needed. Another reason why you would take it relatively lightly, because the person himself didn't attack. It's just his property, his animal. No, perhaps he takes it a bit lightly. And therefore a mashkin is needed to spur him on. So which way is it? And this was the second question posed to Rav Nachman before he even answered on the first. Rav Nachman responded to his guest, Shavkan, let me be. You already stumped me on the first question. Tana Rabbanim. Here comes two shaylas regarding a shayel. Shaloi b'cheskas tam. A shayel is a person who borrows an animal, thinking that it's a tam, an innocent, well-behaved animal. Lo and behold, this thing is the most violent fellow in town, and he's striking away. So next time he causes damage, who has to pay? Ba'alim mishalman chatzi nezek, v'shayel mishalman chatzi nezek. So the shayel and the ba'alim have to split it. The shayel is only responsible for half. I didn't know he's a violent animal. Who would be shayel v'chzir le'ba'alim? What about the other way around? He took it as a good, well-behaved animal, but under his watch, he turned violent. And now he turned it back to the owner, after having become a muad. If he harms, he damages going forward, the owner only has to pay 50%. The borrower is totally potter, and the Gemara will now explain both halachas. Let's go back to the first halacha. Shimon borrows a cow, thinking, he's an innocent-looking ox, and turns out that he's a muad. And he attacks right now, under the shayel's watch. So the owner and the shayel have to split the damages. Why does Shimon have to pay anything? Lay can turn to the owner and say, look, I didn't ask you for a monster. I borrowed a cow, not a lion. You didn't tell me this fellow was, had violent tendencies. Amar Ra says, Rav Hacham, my skin was speaking, he knew that this animal is liable to violence. He didn't know that he's a muad. He thought it was just a tam. But he can still tell the owner, tam shi'ili, muad le shi'ili. I asked for a tam with 50% liability. I didn't ask for a muad. Mishum the Amalek said, then the owner could tell him, look, okay, so at least pay as a tam. Safe, at the end of the day, itam hava, even if he was a tam, and he attacked under your watch, palganis, you would pay 50%, okay. So, pay 50%, I'll pay the rest. Tashtanam, mizil shlim palga, niska, pay half. Well, still, V'nei Malay, Shimon could tell Reuven, itam hava, if he was really a tam, and not a muad, as it turns out, mishtalam migufa. The victim would grab the actual animal. So I wouldn't pay anything on my own. He would just take the animal away. Well, Mishum the Amalek, so Reuben can tell Shimon, safe, well, at the end of the day, even if they take the animal, but you're responsible to compensate me for the animal. Safe, you lav Torah boy slumi lidi, wouldn't you have to pay me back for the animal? So at least pay that amount. But Shimon can tell Reuben, okay, but still, itam hava, if he would have been a tam, and liable to 50% pay, hava moedino miftarina. There is a shita that holds that the chatzi nezek of a tam is just a penalty, because really, he's relatively benign, he shouldn't have to pay anything at this point. The Torah wants to encourage us to watch our animals. There's a penalty. And we know when it comes to a knas payout, if you admission equals exemption. So if I would have admitted and exempted myself if he would have been a tam. But now that he's a muad, I don't have that option. Even according to the other opinion, that the 50% payout of a tam is considered ordinary financial, monetary obligation. So there's no option of being moida. Well, still, Shimon could argue and say, Nemalei itam hava, if he would have been a tam, hava ma'rikna leila agma, I would have ran off with him to the swamp. I would have taken him offshore to a Swiss account, and nobody can access the animal if he would have been a tam, which is mishtalim, which is payable only from the actual animal itself. He didn't tell me that. He was a muad. Elachad ma'eskidon says the Gemara, you're right. We're speaking in the Ag the Beidina v'tafsi, the Bezdin grabbed the animal itself. It's too late, you can't take him offshore. So Shimon has no argument. Well, if that's the case, the table will now turn. If that's the case, we understand why Shimon has to pay his half. But why does Reuven have to pay 50%? He can argue to Shimon, it's all your fault. You exposed him to the collection agency. Name Allah, you can tell Shimon, Atfastilu Teroy, you allowed my animal to be grabbed, biyad on the hands of Mandalim Matzina, Lishto Yudin within the hands of a person who I can't really deal with. I can't deal with that person who took the animal. So basically, you're responsible, because Shimon can tell Reuven, no, I'm not responsible. Even if I would return the animal to you before they came to collect it, wouldn't they have taken it from you? So either way, you would have lost the animal. But Reuven can say, what do you mean? If you'd have given me the animal before they came, I would have taken them out to the swamp, out of reach. By the way, Tesis asks, how could you say you would have taken them away? That's dishonest. So Tesis says, I would have sort of blackmailed. I would have threatened to take them. I would have forced my opponent, my litigant, to come to some sort of compromise, and I would have paid him less than I paid him now. Okay, says the Gemara, but the response to that is because Shimon can tell the owner, what do you mean run away with the animal? He's a muad. Saif, ultimately, they would have taken from your assets. Well, that's good if the owner has other assets to take from. If he has no other assets, the only thing he has is the animal. Had you given him back in time, I would have taken and ran off with him. It's all your fault. Oh. So what's Shimon's response? Because Shimon tells Reuven, look, you're coming after me. I should have given you back the animal, which I owe you. You're right. But you know what? If the animal caused damage, my commitment is now directed to the victim. Because ultimately, he's the one that's meant to be getting paid. I owe you the animal, but you owe the victim compensation for the damages. So therefore, I go directly to him. You have no argument against me. Because Shimon can tell Reuven, the owner of the animal, just like I'm bound to you, to return the animal to you, ultimately I'm responsible to the victim as well, because you're responsible to him. So it's like a chain. I'm responsible to you, and you to the victim, so I go directly to the victim. You can't complain that I paid him up. Midr Rav Nosson, it's based on Rav Nosson, who teaches us this wonderful concept. The Sanya, Rav Nosson Reuben has a claim against Shimon, you owe me a mana. Shimon has a claim against Levi. So basically, Levi borrowed from Shimon, who borrowed from Reuben. When it comes payday, who does Levi pay to? He pays directly to Reuben, because ultimately, the money is owing to him. And we learn it from a pasuk. How do we know we take it from Levi and we give it back to Reuben directly? We have a pasuk. You give it to the one who the money is owed to. That answers our question. So bottom line is, you borrow the animal thinking it's a tam. It turns out to be a muad. You should have informed me. I only pay 50%, you pay the rest. Now in the second case we have, so he took a benign, well-behaved animal and it turned violent under the shayel's watch and he gave it back to the owner. And now it caused damage. He harmed, he attacked. So the shayel is potter, it wasn't under his watch, and the owner only pays 50% as though he's a tam. What do you mean? Sefer Rishus Mishana. So the second part of the brisa, this halacha, is reflective of the concept of Rishus Mishana, change of jurisdiction, change of hands, change of mazel, reverts back to the tam stage. Reisha Rishus Eina Mishana, but the first halacha of the brisa indicated otherwise. That the animal maintains its mu'ad status, even if it changes over into the hands of the shayel. That's a contradiction within the brisa itself. Rabbi Yehuda, you're right. Taver, we must split the brisa into two. Misha Shanazu, Lashanazu, the author of the first part does not author the second part, which reflects a different opinion. Rabbi Amar, no, I'll work it out for you. With the Reisha Rishus Eina Mishana, just like in the Reisha, change of hands doesn't change status. Seifanam Rishus Eina Mishana, likewise in the next part as well, there's no change of status due to change of hands. No, so how do we explain the second part of the brisa? Why does he lose that mu'ad state when he goes back to the owner? V'seifa, hanutayim, that's the reason, because the owner can tell the borrower, you have no business making my animal a mu'ad. Lav kol kaminuch miyadas leil tiroi, you have no permission to turn my shur into a mu'ad. I only have exclusive rights to do that, not you, and therefore, even if he turned violent under your watch, you have no ability to effect change of status, and therefore when I get it back, it's back to square one. Rav Papa Amar, he takes a different approach, the other way around, with the Sefer Rishus Mishana. Just like in the second part of the brisa, we seem to see change of hands, change of status. Reisha Nam Rishus Mishana, likewise in the Reisha. When he was a mu'ad, under the owner's watch, when he moves over to the shayel, this status changes. So why doesn't it? Reisha Hanutayim, so why do we say that he retains his mu'ad status? Because there it's different. It didn't really change hands. Mishum de kol makom shahilach. Ultimately, he wasn't sold. He was just borrowed. So wherever the animal is, Shem Baal of Olav. The name of the real owner is still attributed to the animal. There's no Shinu Rishus, and therefore he stays a mu'ad. So bottom line is, we had a brisa with two cases. Case number one, he borrowed it thinking it was a tam. Turns out to be a mu'ad. He only pays 50%. Case two, it turned mu'ad under the shayel's watch. It goes back to the owner. He loses the mu'ad status. Last halacha in the Mishnah, a bull trained to attack people in the stadium, even if he kills, we don't put him to death. Now we know that a shur that kills is also disqualified from korban. What about this shur who was trained to do so? Is the act attributed to him and he's pasur for korban or not? We have machlekes amaroi. How do we treat him regarding a korban? Rav Amar Kasha, you can bring him. Shmuel Amar Pasel. Rav Amar Kasha, Anasul. You don't hold it against the animal. It's externally imposed on him. Or Shmuel Amar Pasel, because ultimately Avera was done with the animal. He took part in an Avera. Meisvei Vakash. In the beginning of Vayikra, we have the psukim describing a person bringing a korban from behema, from tzoin, from bakar. Min ha-behema, min ha-bakar, min ha-tzoin. Min is an exclusionary term. It's memayit something. Not all animals are fit for mizbeach. Let's go down the list. Min ha-behema, what's that coming to exclude? Lo hitzes ha-reveya, an animal who interacted with a woman as married. Ves ha-nirva, and an animal who was interacted with. The word min ha-bakar is telling you lo hitzes ha-nevad, as opposed to an animal who was worshipped. Favodah zara. Min ha-tzoin, what does that come to exclude? Lo hitzes ha-muktzah, an animal which was designated favodah zara. Min ha-tzoin, the extra vav as well, lo hitzes ha-negeh, as opposed to an animal who attacked a person and killed him. Amar Rabbi Shimon, why all this repetition? Once the pasuk disqualifies a reveya who did an avera, why discuss negeach? Isn't that obvious? Once we discuss negeach, why repeat it? Because each one is different, you can't compare. We have an element of stringency found by reveya, not found by an attacking animal. And likewise, we find an element of stringency by the negeach, not found by the reveya. How? By a reveya, we find no difference between oines and ratzon, whether the animal initiated this interaction as married or it was imposed on him. Also by oines keratzon, as opposed to negeach, trained to do it, is not guilty. Negeach le also by oines keratzon. Right? We don't treat an oines like an animal who attacked willingly. So we find the difference between reveya and negeach. In fact, reveya has a chumrah, so you can't compare the two. On the other hand, if the pasuk would just say negeach is pasuk from korban, you would say perhaps it's attributed to his chumrah, which is found by negeach, not by reveya. For instance, Nageach pays kaifer if he kills a person. Mishalem kaifer, like we learned before. Reveya, if a person is put to death through Reveya, Eina Mishalem kaifer, there's no kaifer payout there. The Gemara soon will explain, how we can have the circumstance of kaifer by Reveya. In any case, Leficha, that explains why the Torah has to stipulate each one separately. Hitzruch le'ma Reveya, who is possible from Karban. And likewise, Hitzruch le'ma Nageach, that's possible from Karban. End of Brisa. Let's analyze the Brisa a bit closely now. The Brisa says, Ketani Miyah, so the Brisa in any case says, Reveya asa ba'enes kiratzin. When it comes to Reveya, willingly, unwillingly, it's all the same thing. As opposed to Nageach, attacking and killing, asa ba'enes kiratzin, we don't equate enes to ratzin. Now, Lamai Hilchasa, pertaining to what don't we equate it? Lav Carbon, pertaining to being qualified for Carbon. That when it comes to Nageach, if it initiated the attack, he's possible from Carbon. But if it was trained and externally imposed, he's kosher for Carbon. That's a raya to Rav. No, look, tell him, we're not speaking about Carbon at this point. The Brisa is, but not this point of the Brisa. The Brisa had a kasha. Why does the Torah have to list them separately? The answer is because they're different. Because we find elements of stringency in one over the other. For instance, by Reveya, we find that stringency not found by Nageach. Regarding Ktala, putting the animal to death, not regarding Carbon at this point, putting the animal to death. So when it comes to putting the animal to death because he was involved with a person that's married, it doesn't matter whether it was Einis or Ratzin, as opposed to Nageach. When it comes to putting the animal to death on account of him killing a person, so only by Ratzin do we do so, but not by Einis, because the pasuk says Ki yigach v'lo she'yagichu, as opposed to externally imposed. But again, regarding his ability to be brought as a Carbon, we have no raya from the Brisa. It appears that in fact the Brisa is discussing the other point, not Carbon at this point, the Amris Carbon, because if you're suggesting that the Brisa is discussing his the ramifications regarding Carbon, how can you state a fact? When it comes to a Nageach, well, if he killed willingly, then he's possible for Carbon. But if he killed ba'inus, he's not possible for Carbon. How would you know that? Lav oines dedeksiv, v'la ratzin dedeksiv. When it comes to the ability to bring the Nageach as a Carbon, there's no mention in the pasuk whether he did it ba'inus or ba'ratzin. El lav l'ktala. So apparently, when we make this distinction, it's regarding putting the animal to death. And there we do have a pasuk. Because in the parsha, putting the animal to death, it says ki yigach. The Shor initiated the attack. But as opposed to an oines, where we don't hold it against him. That's regarding putting the animal to death. But back to our question, regarding his qualifications for a Carbon, if he killed out of oines, such as the Sheret Staden, we're back to the Shaila, Rav says Kasher, Shmo says Pas. Let's focus on another point of this price. We contrasted Nageach to Reveya. Nageach Mishal Masa Kaifer, he has Kaifer payout. Reveya does not have Kaifer payouts. Eina Mishal Masa Kaifer. Now why would you suggest Kaifer by Reveya, who died? Hechidame, Ilema the Rava Vakatla, the animal killed the Isha while he was involved with her, then why wouldn't you pay Kaifer? Mali Katla Bakarna, Mali Katla Reveya. What difference does it make if the animal killed with his horns or by this Reveya interaction? Ve'elo, the Rava Vakatla. So it must be that there was no killing, no death, as a result of the Reveya. So of course there's no kaifer. Well, obviously, haidlei mishalom kaifer, mishalom leikatlo. Do you know why there's no kaifer? Nobody died. There was a Reveya with the Isha, and she didn't die at that point. But she died later through Bezdin. They brought her to the Bezdin. The Bezdin applied capital punishment. So I would think perhaps we sort of blame it on the animal who jumped on her. He killed her. He brought about her death. And there would be kaifer kamash. No, the answer is no, because it wasn't a direct kill. That's Abai's approach. Rava Amar Lo'ilam, the Rava Vakatla, was speaking that he actually killed her as he was interacting with her as married. The question is, Mali Katla Bakarnayim, Mali Katla Baravia. The question is, so why isn't there kaifer? Just like if he kills her outright, here as well there should be kaifer. Well, the difference is, if he killed her by attacking her with his horns, that's an act of aggression. Karen Kavanasa Lahazak, and therefore there's kaifer. Kaifer is specific to this type of expression. High kavanus atzma, as opposed to interacting with her physically, that's for his own personal pleasure and benefit. There's no kaifer there, but my pligi. So what is the machlekes Abaye of Rava? Rava says there's no kaifer, and Abaye seemed to hold there is kaifer if he killed her during the Reveya. The question is, how far does the kaifer payment go? So we know kaifer applies to killing by way of his horns, that's the pasuk. But if I killed any other way, through trampling on a tinek, on a child, b'chatzar nizik, in the area, the victim's territory, which is a place liable for regal. Or Taisa says, better it, if he killed by way of shame, chewing and consumption by way of personal enjoyment. Is there a kaifer or not? Abaye mishalom kaifer. Abaye holds it would be kaifer. And therefore Abaye could not learn that when the Brisa says there's no kaifer, we're speaking that he killed it through Reviyah, because then he would be a kaifer. But Rava le mishalom kaifer, Rava holds there's no kaifer, and therefore Rava was allowed himself to learn. Now the case is, he killed it through the Reviyah, but since it's Hanas Atzma, there's no kaifer. Okay, back to the question. Sherha had stood in this stadium, a bull who was trained to attack, and he killed a person. We don't put the animal to death, but what about his kashrus for korban? Rav says he's kosher, and we have a raya to Rav. Tanakh say the Rav, Sherha had stood, right? Eina chayav misa, and also the kosher l'gabe mizbeach, because it's not his fault. Wed May it's externally imposed on him, and it's nothing of his doing. Therefore, he's not to blame, and there's no effect on the animal. Okay, let's recap today's daf. The shur of the Yusayimim which attacked is liable to nezek if he's a muad, and kaifer, that doesn't apply because the Yusayimim are not bnei kapara. We had two shalas regarding kaifer. What happens if the animal is owned by two shutfin? How do we go about it? Next question, is there a mashkin taken by kaifer? Two questions asked of Nachman. We had the Brisa with two cases as well. He borrowed the animal thinking it was a tam, turns out to be a muad, he's only 50% liable. The other way around, if it turns into a muad in the house of the shoyl and goes back to the owner, it loses the muad status. We discussed shayr at student, there's no misa to the shayr, and we have a Brisa in support of Rav that is kosher l'gabe mizbeach. All the best to you and Atzlacha Rabbah.